What's up, guys? Hugs, not drugs. So the story is going to take place around 2015, give or take, when fentanyl had just hit Portland, Maine. We didn't really know that it was fentanyl. We just knew that it was good dope, and it gave you a rush. And everybody was just really searching for a rush. Nobody wanted just regular dope that would just, you'd be sick and then you'd do some, you'd feel warm and you'd be well. Like, nobody really wanted that. Everybody wanted that, like, you know, like you really feel it when you did it. And so once the Fetty dope came around, and when I say Fetty dope, like, I just mean, it could be xylazine, it could be any of those, it could be trank, I don't know what it was. It definitely had fentanyl in it because it was, you know, killing people pretty quickly. But who knows? It's just a concoction, whatever they put in it. Whatever it was fire. And when you ran out, you could rinse your cottons and still get a rush. And I remember one time, I did the shot, did the rinse, still felt a rush. The fentanyl wears off like after about 20 minutes. You gotta keep doing shots. So and you start to get sick literally after like a half an hour. Like, you start sweating, like you start needing another shot. After 2 hours goes by, you're in full blown withdrawal. And that was kind of like what I did. I was sometimes if I had a decent quantity of dope, I'd keep doing it, but for the most part I was like a 2 hour shot guy. And so that was the kind of dope that we liked. Well, over on there was a street, it was right next to the homeless shelter in Portland, and these dudes were trapping out of there. It was a very small group of guys, but they controlled all the dope. Not all the dope, they just controlled the fire dope, right? There was a lot of drug dealers, a lot of different people selling stuff, but just a small group that had the fire dope. And he'd always switch runners. Not permanent. Well, so like, I would say there was probably like 8 or 9 consistent runners, and then there was like the main dude. Eventually the main dude ended up getting like 25 years in prison. Had nothing to do with drugs. Well, I think he kidnapped somebody and then he tortured somebody, and ended up getting 25. It had to do with a drug deal gone bad or something, but he never ended up getting busted by the feds. It was like for a kidnapping charge or something. But yeah, this small group controlled it, and we loved these guys, man, because they were so consistent. They were all about the money. They were 24 hours, or no, I'm sorry, they weren't 24 hours a day. They were like 9, 10 in the morning till about 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. Yeah, because that's right. We couldn't get what we wanted really early, and we couldn't get what we wanted really late. But they were almost 24 hours a day. But yeah, so this dope was fire, and it would hit the news and would say, oh, people are dying off this. And once that makes the news, everybody just goes crazy. They just want it. They're like, oh my gosh, everybody's dying. We need that. Where is it at? We need it. You know, like, it's so sickening how it is. But yeah, so it's there, and I remember these guys, they got the trap spot, and they got a security guard. Like, he basically screens you when you go up. He's like, all right, what do you need? And if you want more than one bag, you're kind of like pushed to the front of the line. But let's say you go there and you're trying to trade something, or like you got an iPhone and you're like, hey, I want to trade the iPhone for, you know, because a lot of people will go up there with no money or just like a few dollars. So, you know, you need the security guard to, like, you know, screen them like a hospital. Like, hey, what are you here for? You know, you got an ID, you got insurance. You know, your insurance is your cash. And you know, have you been here before? You know, if you've been there before, they know you. You know, they don't got to ask you questions. It's like going to the hospital. If they know you, you know, you don't got to show them no paperwork. They already know you. They know you got money, right? If you're a customer, a frequent flyer, they know every time you come, you're buying at least 10 bags because you're pooling everybody else's money. So you got everybody's money in there. You know, then you got some people, and they don't even know the people up there. They just see people, and this is the way the cops would do it. The cops would try doing that. The cops would see the trap spot, and then they'd send one of their undercovers in to like buy stuff. They wouldn't get served. Yeah, hold on. So yeah, they got the security guard up there, and his name's Will. I forget his last name now, but his name was Will. Really cool guy. Every time I went up there, and or actually, I'm sorry, Biggie was the security guard. It was Will's apartment, and they were like paying Will to trap out of the house. Biggie would screen me, you know what I mean, pat you down, you got any weapons, you got anything that's gonna poke me. So, you get in there, and it was Will's apartment, and Will was like this junkie, and his hustle was like letting drug dealers from places like stay in his apartment. So he'd just be sitting there, and you see him sitting there, and you know what he's doing. He's waiting for a handout. And this is a very common theme when you go to trap spots. The owner of the apartment is almost like the drug dealer's servant. What do you need, sir? Do you want me to go down to the store and get you a pack of Newports? Do you want me to get some weed for you? Hey, do you need some fresh orange juice? Hey, pretty much, and then like whatever, if you have a bedroom, it's now the drug dealer's bedroom. If you got a recliner and it's a nice chair, that's where he sits. And he usually these places are like one bedrooms, and so the way they get privacy is they'll take like a bed sheet and they'll divide the room with a bed sheet, and if you go behind the bed sheet, that's where the dealers are at. And usually the dealers, like if there's a pretty girl that's buying drugs, he'll have the girl go back there. His homies will come over and they'll like watch YouTube videos, and they'll roll blunts, and they'll drink Hennessy. Usually after they've made a bunch of money for the day. This usually happens at nighttime. Like after he's made his, big handful of money, his homies will start coming over, and they usually have their guns. Like everybody's showing off their guns, like taking them out, cleaning the bullets, and, showing off their guns. And, that's just what they do. The junkies, they're just sitting there with their spoons and their tins, and, they're just heating their stuff, and, needles falling out of their arms, while the drug dealers are over there like showing off their weed and counting their money. Sometimes the guy had an iron, because the junkies would always bring bills that were crumpled up. And I remember this one guy, he was real meticulous about his money, like always ironed it, always had it in a straight line, always had a brand new outfit on, real organized drug dealer. And I liked him because what he would do is he'd tell you where he's going to be at. He'd be like, all right, I'm going to be on Oak Street. I want you to meet me there at 10 a.m. He knows he's not going to be there until 11 a.m. So what he does, he tells everybody to be there at 10 a.m. And then when you show up, it's like he's already called all your friends. You get there, every single friend you have is already there. You're like, how'd you get here? Oh, well, Will said he said he'd be here at 10. Is he coming? Hey, did you call him? Hey, you talked to him? What did he tell you? Okay. Did he say how much he had? Is it the fire from yesterday? Okay. Hey, is it new stuff? He re-upped? Okay. Oh, you seen him last night, and the stuff it wasn't white, it was like tinted white? Oh, he must have re-upped. Okay. How is the new stuff? Is it decent? It gave you a rush? Did you weigh the bags? What did they weigh? Oh, really? Oh, dude, yours is a lot bigger than mine. Oh, he came over to your house? Oh, really? He spent the night over? Did he hook you up like with anything while he was over there? Did you get any more? All right. I'm sick right now, but could you give me a little bit, and then when he gets here, I'll give back you double what he gives me? Come on, dude, I'm so sick right now. Come on, dude. All right, for sure, bro, for sure. Yeah, and that's the way it is, right? So Biggie's screening me, checking me down, patting me for weapons, and Will's up there. He's got a guitar, and he's playing, waiting for his handout, or his issue, whatever you want to call it. And I get to know this guy, Will, man. He's cool. Like, it's his apartment, and I'm new to the dope game. Like, I had just jumped into the needle scene. Like, I barely knew what a needle was at this point. So, you know, I'm in there. And I don't know much about the scene. I don't know much about death. Like, I've only had a few people die from car accidents. You know, I don't know much about it. So, like a few days later, yeah, did you hear about Will? I'm like, well, what happened? Yeah, he died. I'm like, Will died? I was just talking to him, like, and apparently he died in between two cars, right out in front of his house. There was two cars, and he died in between the cars. So my guess is Will was one of those types of guys that would just get high anywhere. So, and I would see this a lot, like, because Portland is very populated. There's not much privacy. So my guess is he went in between the cars to do a shot, did too much, and went out. And so it'll say the person died from an overdose, or maybe it'll hit the news and somebody died from this. But what I noticed, and this was a common theme, the people that usually died were a lot of the times the people that were always going out, always overdosing. Also, it was the people that would always mix stuff. Like, you'd see them and they'd be selling Xanax, and they'd be barred out, like drooling on themselves because they took Xanax. And when you're on a bunch of Xanax and somebody offers you more drugs, you're not gonna say, "Oh, dude, I can't. I'm on Xanax, man. You know, that's gonna be a little bit too much for me." No, of course you're not gonna say that. You're just gonna take it and do it because you're so high on Xanax you don't even remember that you took Xanax. So that's what happens. Is, yeah, people will overdose, but it's because they mix it. Like, when you mix Xanax, okay, if you mix a bunch of Xanax and alcohol, which I've done many, many times, it throws you into a different type of high where you get a feeling like, you know, like, this is not right, and you kind of get that, like, I could die type vibe if you do too many. And when you're mixing Xanax, and because that's a common drug around the fentanyl scene, because if Xanax is one of those drugs that'll, like, sort of make you well if you don't have any dope, and it's cheap. So if you can't find any dope and somebody's offering you a Xanax, you're definitely gonna take it. What happens is that you take it, and then later on during the day you get your hustle on, and then by the time it's 9-10 o'clock at night, you've made some money. Now you got money to buy dope, but you've been taking Xanax all day, but you still need to get well because it's in your mind, like, you got to do your issue, and then you go and you do some, and then you're out. You just die. And I know that overdosing, it's not painful, because I've seen people die, and yeah, they're not in pain, man. But, like, it's sort of like you're staring at a dot, like a black dot, right? And the dot's this big, and you're really relaxed, and you're just looking at that dot, and the dot gets smaller, and you're just staring at the dot really relaxed, and the dot just starts getting smaller, and you're still feeling really good. And as you just stare at the dot, you just stop breathing, and then you're dead. And it's just like that. Simple as that. That's how you die. And that's always what happens when you overdose. For me, I've explained this in another video. I really liked fentanyl because it affected my body differently, and I used to astral project unintentionally. Whenever I would do fentanyl, I was able to travel outside of my body. Like I would do a shot, and I'd be having fun. I'd be doing all kinds of stuff, right? But then I'd come to it, and people would tell me, like, dude, you need to lay off. What are you talking about, lay off? And then they show me a video, and I'm like, just drooling on myself, not moving. But in my eyes, I'm partying, I'm dancing, I'm moving around, like, like I was, I never got like an overhead, I was like, you leave your body and you have an overhead view. Like, for me, it was never an overhead view. For me, it was always like, I felt like I was in my body, but I was out of it. I was always in like first person view. Like, I could step out, move around, I could look at people, I can look in people's eyes, and I could always go back to my body whenever I wanted to. But I couldn't float through walls and nothing like that. It was more like, and I never wanted to. I'd always just, whatever was in the room, I always seemed to be entertained with whatever was going on. Like, if there was a video playing, I could watch it from outside my body. If I had friends there and they were talking, I could listen to them outside my body, if that makes sense. But and the whole time I was doing it, I thought, oh, this is cool. Now looking back, I realized, no, that was my spirit leaving my body, and I was almost dead. So I'm very thankful that God gave me mercy and allowed me to get better. That's one of the questions I'm going to have when I get to heaven. Like, God, why do you allow some people to get better and get through, and why do some people take one hit and they die? Like, that's a big question I have for God. And I don't blame God for anything, because God is holy, God is good, God is a sinless God, and God is on another, like, whoever the smartest person in the world is, God invented that smart person. So I can't reason with God. I can't say, God, you did this because of this, because my thoughts are not God's thoughts and God's thoughts are not my thoughts. Even though I don't understand, I believe, and I put faith in Jesus, because to have faith is to put yourself into something that you can't understand. And that's what God wants you to do. If you read the Bible, God delights. He is so happy when his children put his faith in him. He's happy with them, he rewards them, and it makes him smile when his children are following his commandments. It makes him really happy. But yeah, so we'll move on. So Will died. That was really like my first experience with a junkie friend dying, and it hit me hard at first. Eventually I grew numb to it, because it just happened to be like an everyday thing. So Will was like the first person that died. And then I remember getting a ride from this girl. What was her name? Daphne? No, not Daphne. Begins with a D. Danielle, Daphne, Darlene. Oh man, what was her name? That's gonna bother me. No, not Daphne. Gosh, sorry guys, that's gonna bother me. But anyways, so this girl, I remember, she picks me up and we're pooling our money together, and real nice girl. Just, you could tell, just struggling hardcore, like battling with addiction. Real pretty girl, and she was a farmer, a weed farmer, and she had one of those gigantic, like, it's a weed separator. Like it separates something from the weed. I don't know what it was, but it was this big gigantic tube, and it weighed like 200 pounds. And I get in her car, I'm like, what is that? She's like, oh, that's a weed extractor. I'm just like, what are you doing with that? She's like, oh, the dealer said he was going to trade me. If I gave him that, he's going to give me some. I'm like, the dealer? How's he going to take that? She's like, I don't know, I'm just bringing. I'm just like, wow. And so she ended up dying. I read in the newspaper, she ended up dying. Another thing I noticed is that a lot of people would die around a certain person. There was this person that was really shady, and it always seemed like people were dying whenever this dude was around. And it seemed like whenever somebody died, this dude was always wearing their shoes. That was another shady thing. Another thing is so it doesn't matter how cool you are with somebody, if you're friends with somebody, if you got dope and you go out, they are going through your pockets 100%. Happens every time. And the reason why they do it is, we didn't want the cops to get it, or we're looking out for your best interest. But yet when you go to the emergency room and then you come out, the people that had helped you hold your stash is gone. Yeah, so if you go out and you got money, yeah, when you wake up, it's not going to be there. But since we're talking about Biggie was a security man. Man, Biggie was, I don't want to say he was a good friend of mine. It was almost like we were forced to be friends. Because wherever the dealer was, Biggie was there. And like, Biggie was like me. Like, I was always real friendly with the dealers, and Biggie was the same way. He'd make friends with all the dealers. And so Biggie's hustle was, he would get dope for people because he'd be like in with the dealers because he was buddy, and that was sort of my hustle too, where I would make plays for people because I was buddies with the dealer, and so people would give me their money, and I'd take whatever, $300, $400, $500. I'd go to the dealer, I'd work out a deal to get a decent amount. I'd give everybody what they paid for, and then I would keep what was mine, and then I was very good at that, and that's really like what kept me afloat. Like, and another one of my hustles was, so I was always homeless. I never had an apartment. I never had a car, and so what I would do is I would use the dope to get me places to stay. Like, and you didn't need much. All you had to have was an issue, just a little ticket, like a $20 issue. So what I do is I'd always keep one of those tucked away. I mean, I don't want to say always, because when you're a junkie, it's hard to like save anything. But I would always try to put a little bit away. And then I had a list of people that had apartments in the city. And so my hustle was, hey, what's going on? And usually I wouldn't even have to ask them. Usually they'd be like, hey, do you have anything? And I'd be like, dude, if I give you some, can I crash there tonight? Oh, yeah, you know what I mean? Like they're already asking me before I can even ask them. So that was one of my hustles. That's how. I was definitely homeless quite a few times, but compared to other homeless people, I'd say I lived large among the other homeless people. God was with me the whole time, man. Like, for sure. Like, looking back in retrospect, yeah, God was like holding my hand the whole way, even though I was in grips of addiction and grips of sin. But yeah, so Biggie, he'd always be at these places, and his friends became my friends became his friends, and when you're all aiming towards the same goal, which is another bag, you got to work together. Just junkies get real resourceful, especially when what you're buying is so expensive. Because the price of dope in Maine at the time, I think it's still pretty inflated, but at the time, just to get well, just to not be sick and get well, $40 minimum. Now, out here in California, you need to get well, minimum $3. Anywhere you go, you can hand somebody $3, they'll give you a tiny issue. You give somebody $10 in San Diego, LA, I mean, you're getting broken off for $10. Not like a big amount, but I'm saying, like, you give somebody $10, you can stretch that out the whole day if you're resourceful. In Maine, no, nothing. You're not getting nothing for $10. People won't even talk to you for $10. What you can do if you have $20, if you got a good connect, I mean, even most of the connects won't even do this, but if you got a good connect, sometimes they'll hook you up with a 20. Most of the times they won't. So what I would do is I wouldn't even feel comfortable asking the dealer for a 20, and I'll tell you why. Because if you start getting in the habit of asking your dude for 20, he starts getting in the habit of not answering your calls, because there's a million people blowing up his phone, and if he sees your name and associates it with $20 bills, and you're a few dollars short, so it's not even 20, it's more like $16.50. If he associates your name on the caller ID with low amounts and change and single dollar bills, he's not going to want to take that call, okay? Now, he will take it for 40. 40's okay, because 40 is like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't sell illegal things, but I sell legal things. I don't like selling anything like under 20 bucks, but if somebody hits me up and it's like 40 or above, I'll go out of my way for 40 bucks. Same thing with the dealers. So I didn't like to call them for anything under 20. So this is what you do. If you have under 20, you find somebody else that is trying to get, everybody's always trying to get 40 bucks. That's, that's everybody's goal, at least to get 40, because they know once you get 40, you can go and see the dude. But you find somebody and you're like, yo, hey, I got 20. You got 20? Yo, I got 20. And you throw in, a lot of times, like, oh, I got 25, so that means I need 3/4 of it and you get 1/4. No, bro. It's 50-50. So, yeah, and so that's what you do. You find somebody else got 20, you pull in, then you go and get it. But the thing is that the bags are so skimpy in Maine, if you get a 40, sometimes it's not even big enough for 2 people. That's why I'm saying 40 is like, that's what you need for yourself. So, yeah, there's a lot of times, I mean, and this has happened many times, where you'll go and, like, you're thinking it's fire, you give the dude 40, and, like, it's not even really that fire, and you get it, and, like, you just barely get well, and, like, then you're back on your hustle trying to get 40 again. So, yeah, it always sucked. Yeah, I'm trying to think. So, yeah, but so Biggie, yeah, me and Biggie, man, like, we live in basements together. I told you about how we travel around and live in basements. Biggie was a master at finding spots. This dude, he'd break into these buildings and, like, find these little underground bunkers. And yeah, man, Biggie had spots, man. He was a very resourceful homeless person, very resourceful. And he always had food, like, in his pockets. Like, he always, if you were hungry, he'd be like, hey, I got like half of a chicken sandwich, do you want it? All right, I'll give you half the chicken sandwich if you give me 2 puffs off that cigarette. All right, deal, bro, for sure. Yeah, like Biggie was like that. And you could be cool with Biggie, right? You could be his friend, right? And, like, you guys are hanging out for a couple weeks, like, he's sharing with you, you're sharing with him. But if Biggie gets sick, he'll pick up dirt off the ground and put it in a bag and tell you it's dope. Doesn't matter how cool he is with you. If he's sick, he will sell you dirt just so he can get well. And that's the way it is, man. It's just the way it is. All right, guys, I'm at 28 minutes now. I'm going to cut out, and I'll see you guys shortly. Remember, hugs, not drugs. Palabra.